as a huge fan of Ray Traylor, I just had two quick questions regarding him. One, after he left Jim Crockett Promotions, were you ever asked to bury him in interviews? And two, for someone who never ever spoke in Jim Crockett Promotions, did it surprise you how good of a talker he later became?
No and no. A short version, no, I was never asked to bury him. And I don't know. I think Dusty was probably sympathetic to him going when he found out about here. The deal I've told real briefly, but I've told him before, but Bubba, Dusty loved him as a worker and a person and a gimmick. And he had brought him in just to work with him. Remember, the original feud was Dusty and Big Bubba, who was the baddest man in the bunkhouse, baby. And they battled over the bunkhouse stampede trophies and all the other stuff. And when they bought the UWF, when they bought Kansas City, Dusty sent Bubba out to work on top. He knew he wasn't going to fucking draw a goddamn dime in dead Kansas City territory, but he sent him out there to be the top heel and get experience doing that instead of just being in my corner. And when Kansas City didn't look good, then Bubba was back with us. And then the UWF, so he could work with Terry Gordy and Dr. Death Steve Williams. He sends Big Bubba down there and puts him in the title mix. He was grooming him and creating him as a box office and a performing heel, like he would have seen Eddie Graham do for a guy like Jack Briscoe as a babyface, or Barry, that he'd done with Barry Windham, Magnum, whatever, giving him all the breaks. So. And the UWF didn't last long either. So Bubba's back as my bodyguard. And the reason why Bubba Ray decided to explore other options was at Starrcade 87, when we had the scaffold match with the Rock and Roll Express, second year in a row for scaffold. Bubba climbed up the scaffold and went after Ricky Morton, and Ricky hit him in the nuts and fucking scampered away. Bubba didn't have to take the bump. It would have killed him at 350 fucking pounds. But he went up there and he found out that they paid us all 10 grand each and only paid him 5. Cause I mean, he was just in the corner, but he climbed up there at 6'6" and 350 pounds. He's climbing like goddamn spider monkey up that fucking scaffold. Right. And he got 5 grand. So he decided to explore his options and see if he had worth in up north, cause he knew some people that were up there. And I'm pretty sure that Hogan salivated at the idea of getting a guy that size that could move like that and bump like that, which then they had a pretty historic house show run right off the bat. So I've gone long-winded. I thought this would be the easy one to answer, but Dusty would have never asked me to bury him because I think he probably said, well, goddamn, I mean, I remember the first time Bubba had $10,000 week in 1988 or whatever it was, calling me up in Charlotte going, I just got a check for $10,000. So I'm sure Dusty was probably happy for him. I'm sure Dusty wishes that he had him, but at the same time, he didn't want to. Ray, I don't think had any heat like that.
Interesting. Dusty got programmed with him as soon as he got to the WWF.
Well, there you go then. I didn't even remember that, to be honest with you, but that makes a lot of sense because Dusty may have very well said, hey, give me this kid. I don't even know who came out on top of it, but I can make both of us look better.
And then in terms of him being good on promos, how much of a surprise was it to you?
Oh, no, Bubba was fucking hilarious. He was a smart guy and he had that accent because he was from Georgia, but it fit. The only thing with his voice, his natural voice was very high pitched. And when he got to laughing or giggling, which he did a lot, or just doing like I think it's a Southern thing. Well, we go up like that. So it's like when he told me after the scaffold when I'm laying there, Jimmy, you fell so fast. So I was worried that the tenor or the pitch or whatever of the voice would not fit the image. But when he concentrated and kind of got that, a little of that in it, he made it work. But he was just always hilarious, a great storyteller, and just a hoot to be around in a locker room for everybody.
How did he tell you that he was going up there and gave us notice?
He told me he was pissed at his chick and he was checking to see if they wanted him, is what he told me. And then he told me, hey, guess what? They want me. He didn't hide anything from, I assume, Bobby and Stan, as I recall, knew about it also. You know, we weren't going to say anything or stooge him off or whatever. But no, it's not like he hid it or whatever, but we weren't going to broadcast it either. And at the time, you didn't get a lot of fucking details. There was a lot of it was like, hey, yeah, they're interested.
Do you have any idea who he would have spoken to up there?
Well, God damn it. I can't remember, but it was somebody that had left, Crockett and gone there shortly before or previously before or whatever that, you know, but I can't really even remember, to be honest.
Rick Rude, I guess, is a candidate.
If Rude had already gone.
Rude had already gone, yeah.
And I mean, but once again, I don't even know if it was that they recommended him. And I think it was that they just gave him the fucking phone number. You know, I don't know that he actually, that anybody actually hugely recommended him or before he made an initial contact. But I mean, all he had to do was look on fucking TV. He'd been on TBS, you know, basically unbeatable, invulnerable, and indestructible for 2 fucking years. And a huge guy that could give Hogan a believable challenge and could bump and fly like crazy.
Yeah, and that program with Hogan was one of Hogan's best drawing house show programs. And again, he was a newcomer to the territory. And when I was a kid, everyone talked about, all the other kids talked about what a big deal it was that Hogan would give him the superplex off the top of the cage on Saturday night's main event. But he did that in every town. They were doing that every night.
Yeah. Bubba was fearless, and especially if he could, that's why his shit looked different than everybody else's, but it was still safe, and, you know, he didn't hurt you or whatever the fuck. But from his early days with job guy matches, squash matches on TBS, I tried to encourage him, since he was supposed to be a street fighter and a bodyguard, to do more than just, instead of moves that just look like everybody else's wrestling moves, come up with strongman and actually fucking movie monster fucking moves, right? So his shit always had a little different kind of twist to it that made it look even more ooh, and that a big guy could do that and was agile enough to do that. That's what got his shit over. But when you think about it, somebody just tweeted, may have been Dean, just tweeted recently, one of his first squash matches on TBS as Ray Traylor, when he just came up with a bunch of job guys.
Yeah.
The one that I think he did one or two, I think just one. He just did a couple matches that day. But he took the slingshot suplex from Tully, and Tully was 5'9" and 205, and Bubba was 6'6", and at that time probably about 360. Because he was a little obese, and then Bobby Eaton picked him up and gave him a perfect belly to back that he just like nothing. And that's when Dusty took him off TV and brought him back 2 months later as Bubba Rogers. But from that time where he was doing those job matches and that awful singlet to the time that he was working and he got paid, I'll guarantee you, $60 that day to do that. Till the time he was making $10,000 a week, main event in Madison Square Garden with Hulk Hogan was approximately 2 years.
It's truly amazing. Did you keep in touch with him when he was in the WWF?
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as possible, because no cell phones, right? So he's on the road with the WWF at the same time as I'm on the road with WCW. So every once in a while, if he's home for a few days at noon on a weekday and my phone rang, or whatever, we would be able to keep up. But we never lost touch permanently, because then I came back just in time I came to the WWF just in time to see him for a while before he left. So that was only a couple of years. And then He was in WCW for a while when I was in the office up there, but then he came back just as I was getting into developmental and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then he came to OVW as a trainer. So every few years we would get a chance to catch up, but it just, his learning curve early and his work in the ring, especially the first, 5 years he was in the business, was just insane.